Today's been a bit of a strange day in our nation. The traffic's been mad, the shops have been busy, our news stations have been going wild, the sun's even been shining. But there's been something different about today. Today is, of course, Good Friday. But sometimes for those who believe, it's a bit of a strange day. The tendency, of course, is that Christians are resurrection people, and therefore on this most strange of days, the tendency is to soften our blows and ready our minds on Sunday, on Easter Sunday, that morning when Jesus rose victorious from the grave. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when we push our way to Sunday and rush our way past Good Friday, the truth is that we miss something meaningful and significant. None of those who follow after Jesus would claim that Good Friday didn't happen, of course, but sometimes many of us neglect to stop and ponder why it is good in the first place. And as we've journeyed together over the past fortnight, considering the 7 sayings of Jesus on the cross, tonight we consider 5 and 6. They're found in John chapter 19, verses 28 to 30, and it reads as follows. Later, knowing that everything had now been finished, and so that Scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge on a stalk of the hyssop plant, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. When he had received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." And with that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Yesterday, as we considered how Jesus was forsaken by the Father so that we might be forgiven, all sin was laid on him and the wrath of God was poured out. In those harrowing moments, the love of God for those whom he had created, for mankind, for you and I. The love of the Father was magnified as Jesus, God the Son, became sin, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. Knowing that this divine exchange had taken place and that Scripture would be fulfilled, as Jesus asks for something to drink, his suffering is about to reach its end. In Mark's account of the crucifixion, we are given insight into the reality that Jesus had already been offered a drink at the beginning of his crucifixion, but turned it down. This was custom. You see, that wine which was mingled with myrrh, essentially a spiked drink, was offered to criminals to deaden the pain and prolong their death, to further make an example of them as they hung on the cross. But this wine which was offered toward the end would have been greatly diluted wine and been from the old soldier's stash. This drink, which Jesus would use to wet his parched lips and dry throat, was offered to him on a sponge on a stalk of hyssop, the same plant which was used to spread the purifying blood of the Lamb on the Israelite doorposts that first Passover. An event which would be a foreshadow of that which was taking place in these very moments as Jesus himself became the sacrificial lamb for the sins of the world. But lips wetted, throat cleared, and in a loud cry, Tetelestai, it is finished. Never before and never again will a single word change the course of history in such a dramatic fashion. Tetelestai, it is finished. This was not the cry of one who had lost, but of one who had fulfilled the very purpose for which he had taken on human form. This was the cry of one who had taken upon himself the sin of the world, that sinful man might know joy and freedom. This was the victor's cry. The verb telu, from which this word tetelestai comes, was a common word in the 1st and 2nd centuries and often appeared on receipts which were given after a payment was made. So Jesus, as he hangs on the cross, knowing that everything had now been finished, let out a loud cry, akin to paid in full. We live on the other side of the cross. We know that's what happens on Sunday. We know how the story ends. Perhaps today you've heard somebody say it's Friday, but Sunday's coming. But let us not be in a rush to get to the end of the story. Let us stay here and marvel a little longer. You see, the God of the cosmos, the one who flung stars into space and gave the sun and moon their assignment, the one who is all-powerful, all-knowing, and ever-present, he paid your debt. He paid my debt. So this Good Friday, wherever it finds you, might you come to know the greatest love story ever told, and know that the word tetelestai, which changed the course of history forever, that it was spoken for you. May you trust in him this evening for the salvation of your soul. For every sin on him was laid, that you might be bought with the precious blood of Christ. If you know and have experienced his saving power in your life tonight, let me leave you with these words from old preacher and theologian Charles Spurgeon. Has he finished his work for me? Then I must get to work for him. And I must persevere until I finish my work too. Not to save myself, for that is all done, but because I am saved.